I'm Lynn Packer with Operation Underground Railroad Report 21. Tim Ballard and Sean Reyes unhinged, lying at the drop of a hat without remorse to promote OUR and their own careers. 2 years ago, when a criminal probe into OUR began, it's still underway, Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes curtailed his public OUR support, whether in person or online. But now he's back, appearing in Mexico to promote a movie about an OUR child sex slave rescue that never happened, and popping up again with Tim Ballard promoting an OUR fundraiser.
Hey guys, you know that tomorrow's July 30th at Rio Tinto Stadium, Salt Lake City, Get Loud for Children concert. Rise up for the World Day Against Human Trafficking. Here I am with one of my best buddies, Sean Reyes, Attorney General of Utah. Sean, thanks for coming, bro. Thanks for being here.
Everybody rise up, support OUR. This is an incredible day, and we need all of your voices.
My two previous episodes, 19 and 20, were about the untruthful storyline in Tim Ballard's yet-to-be-released Hollywood-style movie, Sound of Freedom. Purportedly based on a true story, the main plot thread is pure fiction that portrays Ballard as a superhero rescuing a kidnapped child sex slave from a brutal drug lord deep inside the jungles of Colombia. This episode now focuses on Ballard's fellow OUR pitchman, Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes, and false claims he's made while propelling himself to Utah Republican Party stardom, not just about child sex trafficking, but also Reyes lying about his warrior and political leadership heritage, Reyes turning his con artist father into a heroic figure, extolling him as my hero, my giant, my best friend. Reyes concocting a revisionist family history, leaving a wide gap between what's real and factual and what's made up and imaginary. Both Reyes and Ballard exhibit sociopathic proclivities, having little or no conscience, an absence of remorse as they seek money, power, and fame. It's no surprise that birds of a feather do flock together. Ballard and Reyes were closely connected with America's bullshitter-in-chief, Donald Trump. I previously reported about those connections. Before Trump was ever elected president, I'd reported on his involvement in multiple frauds and how his penchant for lying was similar to that of former Mormon General Authority Paul Dunn, who had falsely claimed to have been a World War II hero and a professional baseball player. I wrote the book on his pathological lying, not unlike Trump, Ballard, and Reyes. Perhaps Reyes's biggest and most frequent lying is about his father, Norberto Buddy Reyes. Falsehoods Reyes uses to establish his own credentials as a warrior who inherited a fighting spirit, business acumen, and leadership ability from and through his father, tracing back to a former popular Philippine president and World War II hero, Raymond Magsaysay. Reyes tells his heritage story over and over, campaigning for Attorney General, and then again when he took the biggest stage in his life in support of Donald Trump's nomination at the 2020 Republican National Convention, spurring headlines like this one, among hundreds of news stories about the speech. Utah Attorney General invokes father's warrior spirit as he praises Trump in RNC speech.
I'm Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes. I'm a proud American and proud descendant of warrior ancestors, women and men alike, from my Hawaiian, Filipino, Japanese, and Spanish heritage. My father demonstrated his warrior spirit over 50 years ago, fighting a dictator in his homeland, the Philippines. Barely escaping with his life, he started anew in America. He arrived with nothing but faith, determination, and a willingness to work hard. He lived the American dream, building businesses, a family, and seeing me become Utah's first minority statewide elected official.
There will be two main topics covered in this report that I'll use to analyze and fact-check Sean Reyes' claims. A 1991 movie produced by Sean Reyes' father, Buddy, and a 2022 Sean Reyes LDS Church Talk. The first case in point, the 1991 Hollywood movie Night of the Kickfighters. It's one of Buddy Reyes' many business failures and alleged swindles. Sean Reyes, then about 17, was a production assistant on the film. The second topic is Sean Reyes' over-the-top speech he gave July 24th this year, was at a Mormon church single adult fireside in Murray, Utah. I'll begin with Buddy Reyes. Who is he? Norberto Buddy Reyes is seen here singing and playing the guitar at a Sean Reyes Attorney General inauguration. He's the man Reyes calls a hero, the man the Attorney General claims links him by blood to a widely admired and beloved former Philippine president.
Hi, my name is Buddy Reyes.
Buddy Reyes was born in the Philippines in 1940, the second oldest of 8 children. His family, like most in the Philippines, was Catholic. He emigrated to the United States in 1967 at age 27. He married an American the next year, 1968, and died in California in 2020 at age 79. Details are sketchy and sometimes conflict about what Buddy Reyes accomplished in the Philippines before leaving to seek his American dream. Here are some of Buddy's and Sean's claims. That he was a high school graduate, attended a Catholic university majoring in architecture, a self-taught artist painting oils of famous people, commissioned by Pope Paul VI as his personal artist, served in the Philippine Army, Sean says, as an intelligence officer, accompanied Bob Hope on USO tours as an Elvis cover artist, starred in his own Filipino radio and television shows, produced blockbuster movies for MGM, a political activist opposing Ferdinand Marcos before Marcos became a dictator. These are Sean Reyes' direct quotes. My dad, as a self-taught picture artist and painter, became so proficient that in his early 20s he was selected by the Holy Father Pope of the Catholic Church to be his personal artist. My dad painted portraits and pictures of the Pope that hung in the Vatican and still do. By his mid-20s, he was also a movie producer for MGM Studios. This is a really talented man who had enough at that time to buy 3 homes for his 10 brothers and sisters and his parents. Sean Reyes tells his father's immigration story over and over, such as this 2015 interview.
He came because of political pressure, because he had been outspoken against the Marcos regime. President Marcos had been in power for a little while, and my father, who had gained some notoriety painting pictures, for instance, for the Vatican, commissioned by the Pope, and had sung on tour with Bob Hope, the USO tours, and done other things. He had some, I think, a little bit of a platform, and he used it to speak out against the administration. And so, again, due to persecution, they literally put a gun to his head a couple of times, and he figured he'd be safer. So he immigrated to the U.S.
Over time, both Buddy and Sean mastered talking points that resonated with audiences. Take, for example, the next clip where you can see a podcast host reacting in amazement to Sean Reyes' stories about his father. Talking points with the wow factor.
What many people don't realize is that as a young man, he was chosen as the personal artist for the Pope, the Holy Father of the Catholic Church. So he painted portraits and pictures that hung in the Vatican. And he later on, when he came and struggled to find a career and establish himself here and help our family kind of move out of the the tough neighborhood we were in, he eventually found a lot of success, more so with his art than with performing and singing. We would have John Wayne come to the house and sit for a portrait. The Duke, can you imagine, as a kid, you're like, oh my gosh, I just saw this guy in some movies. And then Gene Autry and Magic Johnson and people like that. So Dad became an internationally acclaimed artist, particularly Western artist in that genre, but he always still entertained and performed. Kyle may not have told you, but Dad on the singing side was discovered by Bob Hope when he was performing in a club, and Mr. Hope said, I want him. I don't want his band. I always want him. And so he went and was the opening act for Mr. Hope on his USO tours.
Another acclaimed Buddy Reyes accomplishment before escaping the Philippines with his life, being made a producer for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios.
So he talked his way, literally said, oh yeah, I've made several movies, and so MGM Studios was filming a lot in the Philippines, and he talked his way onto a set, kind of, I say, buffaloed his way on there. And then before you know it, he was a producer, then a line producer, and was doing a lot of things for MGM Studios, creating blockbuster Hollywood movies. So, I mean, all of this before he was 25.
One source of Sean Reyes' warrior spirit is a president in the Reyes family tree. Ramon del Fierro Magsaysay was a Filipino statesman who served as the 7th president of the Philippines from December 1953 until his death in an aircraft accident in 1957. He was a guerrilla leader during the Pacific War.
One of the most beloved presidents of the Philippines was Ramon Magsaysay, a war hero, defender of democracy, and Time Magazine Man of the Year, who served in the late 1950s. Magsaysay was my grandfather's first cousin, but more like a brother. They had grown up together, raised their families together. He was my father's godfather, and Dad affectionately called him Uncle Ramon.
The former First Lady, President Magsaysay's widow, aided Buddy's escape. Quoting Sean Reyes, to his credit, my dad stood up for what he believed, so much so that he had to leave the Philippines. In the middle of the night in the late 1960s, his aunt, the former First Lady, helped him prepare for a trip. He was going to go as an artist and visit the United States, but it got expedited when he found out that he was going to be executed the next day. She got him on a plane and a one-way ticket. Did Buddy know the First Lady? It's possible. A Buddy Reyes painting of the First Lady hangs at her former house, now a museum in Zambales. The museum archivist calls the portrait a breathtaking painting of the former First Lady done by Norberto Reyes. Did the First Lady really help Buddy escape? Did Buddy enter the United States legally? His son says yes to both questions.
So at the time, he was legal, but the INS was still figuring out sort of what to do in terms of the status. And so he was kind of in a no man's land in terms of what to do to progress forward. They weren't giving him citizenship yet, but they were also saying, we want you to stay.
Despite purportedly having had successful careers and money to buy new homes for his family, Sean Reyes says his father arrived in the States in 1967 with almost no money, forcing him to sell paintings on the street, to buy even dog food.
And so in that time, he eked out a living painting on the streets, like for apples or dog food or whatever people would give him in exchange for his paintings. Living in pretty humble circumstances in downtown Los Angeles, he heard about an art contest. It was a national art contest that Coretta Scott King was sponsoring in memory of Reverend King, who had been slain in the early part of 1968. Somebody had approached my father and said, "Buddy, you should enter this contest. There's some prize money." And my dad thought, I don't even have money to buy oils, acrylics to actually paint. I don't have a canvas, I've got nothing. And he took the cupboard off of his little apartment kitchen, cupboard, unscrewed it, took the handles off, and used just those old paints, really kind of roughly, to create a portrait of Reverend King. And he also had in there kind of juxtaposed a silhouette of Mahatma Gandhi, and kind of in the clouds and the ether behind Reverend King, faintly you could see Jesus Christ.
Sean Reyes recapped his father's journey to America in an interview with Attorney at Law magazine. It was headlined, Attorney General Sean Reyes carries on legacy of service. The article said, the dictatorial regime of Ferdinand Marcos threatened to kill Buddy Reyes because of his outspoken views about the government. Buddy Reyes immigrated to the United States legally and immediately made an impact. As he had for the Pope, my father painted a picture of Reverend King after he had just been tragically slain, Reyes said. He won the inaugural Martin Luther King National Art Contest, and Mrs. King, a group of lawyers and senators, helped my dad establish himself with citizenship. Shortly after that, Dad married Mom. Annette Reyes was a Hawaii native, a BYU graduate. She had a master's degree, was a school teacher, and then later a principal. In 2008, 4 years before being appointed Attorney General, Reyes granted an interview to City Weekly titled Bishop of Bling, an article that focused in part on his calling as a Mormon bishop. Quoting from the article, he fell in love with Annette Maida, watching her walk to work each morning when he'd leave his hideout apartment in search of work. As devoted a Catholic as Buddy was, he since converted to Mormonism. Annette Maida was an equally devout Mormon. He married Maida in 1969, and actually it was in October 1968. Their first family home was in Westchester, a poor and predominantly African-American neighborhood in South Los Angeles. When Sean was 8, that was about 1979, they moved to San Fernando Valley, first Canoga Park, and then nearby West Hills. This map shows the family's move from Westchester near the Los Angeles airport, which Sean Reyes often refers to as the Hood, to the valley northwest of Los Angeles. This is the Buddy and Annette Reyes family in West Hills. Buddy, born in 1940, Annette in 43, Sean Reyes in 1971, Noreen, 1974, and Kyle, 1978. Buddy's main job, supplementing art sales, also had some bit parts in movies, was multi-level marketing, MLM. He sold door-to-door National Safety Associates, NSA products, sold home fire alarms, then water and air filters, and Juice Plus dietary supplements. NSA, over time, was hit with a barrage of lawsuits claiming it was a pyramid scheme and that its salespeople made false claims. He switched careers and plunged into movie making. In 1988, he became a movie producer and director. Buddy produced and directed the feature film Night of the Kickfighters, a movie that took 4 years to make. He engaged several family members, including his wife, his kids, and fellow Mormons from his congregation. In late 1988, the company Norberto Reyes Productions, Inc. was formed to produce Night of the Kickfighters. Max Togre, a financial consultant who had befriended Reyes, handled the paperwork. The movie was promoted with the tagline, "Kickfighting like you've never seen it before." The storyline, a wealthy businessman invents a new high-tech laser weapon. A band of terrorists, headed by a seductress villainess, kidnaps the inventor's daughter, and the weapon demanded as ransom. A former CIA operative and champion kickboxer is hired to rescue the kidnapped victim. The movie stars Adam Bauman as a balding kickboxer hero, Marcia Carr as a sex fetishistic villainess. Adam West is the ray gun inventor and father of the kidnapped molestation victim. Adam West had some star power. 20 years earlier, from 1966 to 68, West starred in the ABC television series Batman. It featured arch villains and kidnapped victims and slapstick comedic fistfights.
Surrender that gigantic pie.
Buddy Reyes' movie had its own multiple fight scenes, like this one in a bar while a stripper continues dancing during the fight, and this one in an office involving the villainess.
I hope you don't mind me being so thorough, Mr. Kennedy.
Right.
But I had the feeling we'd have lots to talk about. And I figured a little privacy.
Privacy, huh?
You can watch the entire movie on YouTube. But next, I'll show clips of some of the film's standout scenes. The first sequence I'll show is where the team is working out, preparing to rescue the kidnapped victim. Director Reyes throws in a familiar cinder block breaking on a bed of nails exercise to get the star Kickfighter in shape for the mission.
Y'all ready? I'm always ready. Fucking A. All right. Give me a hand.
Next, the checking out a client's hardware scene. Reyes, as the film's director, took a shot at creating some memorable movie lines, such as this one: "I was just checking out a client's hardware. The woman, as one of the Kickfighter team members, gets a phone call while she was making out to come to that training session to prepare for the rescue mission."
I'm here. What's up? Nah. I was just checking out a client's hardware.
Then there's the villainous molests the kidnapped victim scene. In an apparent attempt to make his movie an erotic thriller, Buddy directs a sex abuse scene.
You know, Panty, maybe we should send her to the chic afterward. He has such a fondness for high-spirited American girls.
After the molestation scene, the blood smearing and rescue scene follows. In one of the movie's main sequences, the villainess smears blood on the kidnapped victim's face as the hero fights with the main henchman before rescuing the victim.
Don't they kill him?
Let her go.
No!
Okay.
In a film sprinkled with Buddy's friends and family, he included a brief shot of his kids, his daughter Noreen and youngest son Kyle, walking past a magic show poster. Trying anything to market the film, Buddy took it to a Milan, Italy film festival. He could barely pay the plane fare and was only able to pitch the film from another filmmaker's booth. He had no luck selling the film at the show, and then his luck got even worse. The story is Buddy told an associate just after it happened. Near the train station, Buddy was approached by a man dressed as an old woman and was attacked from behind by 3 other men. They fled with his briefcase and a film camera he was carrying. But using his martial arts skills, he chased them down, beat them up, and retrieved his stuff. Buddy made several attempts to get his film distributed in theaters. All failed. Finally, it was picked up for sale on VHS cassette and eventually DVD. After videotape release, Reyes's film did get some reviews. One wrote, "Night of the Kickfighters proves to be memorably horrible on all levels, from the non-existent fighting abilities of all the actors to the non-existent filmmaking abilities of everyone behind the camera. Night of the Kickfighters is a veritable symphony of bad editing, worse special effects, and a story so woefully wrong you'd think they were trying to be campy on purpose." Another reviewer commented on the fondle scene. That scene not only demonstrates how far out of its way the film goes in presenting a villainess with dubious sexual proclivities, she also likes to play with blood. It's one of the more inexplicable things I've seen in a movie, unless the aim of the scene was to fulfill some producer's very particular fetish wishes. Finally, this film is possibly one of the worst movies I have ever seen. There are so many errors in the movie, poor acting, camera work, and lack of dialogue combined with a weak plot. A sexy super spy protagonist cast as a balding, middle-aged white dude. A cheapo production directed by one Buddy Reyes. Kickfighter is the kind of movie where a guard has an Uzi hanging over his shoulder, but jumps into a karate stance when someone surprises him. How much money did Buddy raise for his film, and how much did he spend? Based on information from a source involved in the movie's fundraising, who prefers to remain anonymous, Reyes took in more than $1.2 million. $500,000 came from Japanese attorney Henry Koda, who represented investors in Japan who wanted to put money into Hollywood. He was made an executive producer, and his name appears in the closing credits. $60,000 investment from a New Jersey man with suspected mob ties. $300,000 from Hollywood socialite, millionaire Greta von Steinbauer, who wanted to get her name on the screen. She did. Her name is in the closing credits. And $50,000 from a young woman, Elizabeth Wallace, who came to Hollywood to be in pictures and had just inherited money from her deceased father. Buddy Reyes told investors the movie was not only certain to be nominated for an Academy Award, he assured investors it would also win, and he would invite them on stage when he got the Oscar. After Buddy finished the so-called director's cut of his film, that's the version before polishing it for a final cut, he showed it to investors in a Hollywood screening room. A co-producer who was at the screening told me, investors were mortified. This better not be the movie, they said. They referred to Buddy as an incompetent fool. The co-producer said Buddy's stories were highly exaggerated, if not completely made up from scratch. Lawsuits, attempts to collect unpaid bills ensued. Sean Reyes thinks the lawsuits were unfounded. He refers to the plaintiffs as persecutors and opportunists. Quoting from his City Weekly interview, Sean Reyes said his father would pray on his knees for hours over his endless legal struggles. I wanted to protect my dad, Reyes said. I thought I'd become a lawyer and stand up against the guys persecuting him. Saddled with liens against their house and judgments to be paid off, Buddy Reyes, his wife Annette Maida, and their 3 children endured hard times.
My dad came to this country, tried to build a better life, and so often was on the wrong end of these bullies that would come in and say, we have more lawyers, we have better lawyers, we'll just drive you into the ground. Is one of the things that sort of inspired me to look to a career in law, to try to level the playing field, give the smaller guy a chance to fight back.
Was Buddy Reyes's film a swindle? Probably, in more ways than one. More information is needed to determine the extent of any fraud. How much did he take in compared with how much was spent on legitimate filmmaking expenses? How many friends and relatives did he hire as inexperienced actors? And how much, if anything, were they paid? There is enough to indicate the likelihood of fraud. Reyes lying to investors about his experience, and Reyes making absurd false promises about the film's chances for success. With that background about Buddy Reyes's family history and his movie, I'll do some fact-checking. What's true and what's hogwash? One fact-checking factor is Reyes' family silence. Sean Reyes does not document claims. His contentions are usually vague, without dates, usually without attribution, without citation to sources, without photographs. Details often conflict from one telling to another. He would not do an interview. He declined my request to provide evidence. I asked 2 Sean Reyes spokesmen, Rich Pyatt on the AG side and Alan Crooks on the campaign side, to provide proof for a list of Sean Reyes claims. They declined. Kyle Reyes would not return my call. Noreen Reyes declined comment. As the cartoon character Pinocchio told lies, the bigger the lie, the longer his nose grew. As I fact-check each of a series of Buddy and Sean Reyes claims, I'll rate each on a scale of 5 Pinocchios, ranging from possibly a lie, to likely a lie, to definitely a lie. Beginning with the Pope's artist claim. There's no proof of any commission or photo of Buddy Reyes paintings hanging at the Vatican. Unlike some of his other celebrity paintings, Buddy did not show his Pope painting online. The Vatican press office so far has declined my request for verification. Very likely false. 3.5 out of 5 Pinocchios. The Toured with Bob Hope claim, which would have taken place around 1960, he claims to have gone on more than one tour. Buddy was in a Filipino band. In 2019, he wrote, "The Fabulous Group, my very talented band composed of the Alero brothers, who were with me and backed me up in my radio and TV programs, as well as with Bob Hope's USO performances. This photo was taken around 1962. I was very young then, already singing Elvis, and known as the Elvis Presley of Asia. Wow." In 2016, Buddy Reyes performed at one of his fundraisers in Logan, Utah. The Herald Journal reported, "During the Vietnam War, Reyes signed a contract to sing for American generals when they went to the Philippines on leave. Reyes also wrote several songs that were on the hit parade." Reyes, who was asked to tour with the Bob Hope USO show when he was 18 years old, is frequently introduced as the Elvis Presley of Asia. Buddy was 18 in 1960. In 1960, Bob Hope's USO troupe was one of 11 sent out to perform on military bases around the world over the Christmas holidays. That year, Hope's troupe played in the Western Hemisphere, far from the Philippines. Hope's troupe consisted of big-name stars. Touring with Hope will be Zsa Zsa Gabor, Andy Williams, Anita Bryant, and the Les Brown Band. Why would Hope take an unknown, small-time Filipino boys band along? Buddy and Sean's Bob Hope story rates 5 Pinocchios. Buddy Reyes's worked for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer claim that he produced Hollywood blockbusters before the age of 25. By his mid-20s, also, he was a movie producer for MGM Studios. Sean Reyes. Buddy Reyes, by age 17, was a line producer for MGM Studios, the Deseret News. Fact-checking the MGM claim, there were no MGM Studios in the Philippines. There was an LVN Pictures, Inc., the biggest in the history of Philippine cinema. LVN Pictures was compared to that of the MGM of Hollywood. By the early 60s, it was teetering on bankruptcy. 5 Pinocchios. The related to President Magsaysay claim. Buddy and Sean Reyes's claim connections to President Magsaysay are all over the place. He was Buddy Reyes's first cousin. No, Buddy Reyes's uncle. No, Buddy Reyes's godfather. Or Sean Reyes's cousin. That's the one used most frequently. Sean Reyes's first cousin. Sean Reyes's grandfather's first cousin. Sean Reyes's uncle. Sean Reyes is a grandnephew. All the Reyes family has to do is produce the family tree. Relatively easy, given the LDS Church's passion for genealogy. I've asked for that information, and they decline providing it. Much of the Reyes family tree is online at the LDS Church's website. It even shows that Sean Reyes made additions as recently as 2017. He likely knows if, and if so, how, he's related to President Magsaysay. I give the claim about 4 Pinocchios. It leaves some room for a very distant relationship. Sean Reyes often claimed his father was a legal immigrant. Some examples: Buddy Reyes immigrated to the United States legally and immediately made an impact. Coretta Scott King and her lawyers assisted my father in expediting his legal status from resident to that of a full U.S. citizen. Fact-checking the legal immigrant claim begins with an interview Buddy Reyes did with Desert Magazine in 1978. He was interviewed by the California Magazine in an article about his Western-themed artwork. Buddy Reyes's own words prove an illegal immigrant claim is a lie. After a taste of success as an artist in the Philippines, today his paintings hang in the Manila Museum of Art, he began his plan to come to the United States. In his words, to partake of what is good in America, to expand, to grow. Carrying out the plan became complicated by the United States quota system for immigrants to the United States. Reyes had fine credentials as a successful artist, architect, television director, and production designer, but these were openings filled many times over by United States citizens. The only open avenue to the United States was as a tourist. So with $10 in his pocket and 15 days on a tourist pass, Reyes arrived at Los Angeles International Airport in 1967, determined to stay. He managed a series of legal delays for his return to the Philippines and filed them with furious energy. This energy, a firm dedication to purpose, and unflagging hope overcame each obstacle. During this period, he painted for various tastes: seascapes, snow scenes, barns, animals, children, old people, nudes. Art galleries noticed Reyes's work and featured it. Famous collectors, Cornell Wilde, Baron Hilton, Dennis Weaver, bought his canvases. The legal immigrant claim is also disproved by Sean Reyes' own words. Before he ran for office, Reyes, in a Salt Lake Tribune interview, while still not fully on the level, disclosed that his father at least overstayed a purported student visa and became undocumented. After becoming Attorney General, especially when Trump made illegal immigration a bigger issue, Reyes would change the following narrative. Reyes' father was a teenage singer, actor, artist, and heartthrob in the Philippines who was related to the country's president. But when Ferdinand Marcos rose to power, Norberto Reyes came to the United States on a student visa and overstayed, avoiding immigration trouble for 3 years before he was arrested. While in a detention camp awaiting deportation, he won a national art contest to commemorate the death of Martin Luther King Jr. and caught the attention of Coretta Scott King and her lawyers. They prevented his deportation, and he later became a movie producer and entrepreneur. In 2008, 2 years after the Tribune story, and still a few years before he ran for Attorney General, Sean Reyes in the City Weekly story, while still not disclosing all the facts, acknowledged Buddy was undocumented. Buddy Reyes immigrated from the Philippines to the United States in 1967. For a while, he hid out in an apartment at night with other undocumented Filipinos. He fell in love with Annette Maida, watching her walk to work each morning when he'd leave his hideout apartment in search of work. Rating Buddy's legal status claim probably deserves more than 5 Pinocchios. This side note, was Buddy ever a Mormon? You might recall the City Weekly story said, as devoted a Catholic as Buddy was, he since converted to Mormonism. Annette Maida was an equally devout Mormon. Is that true? Was he a Mormon? Well, yes, no, maybe, probably. His business associate told me that Annette insisted he join the church as a condition of marriage. The associate said that's how Buddy became legal, marrying an American to get a green card. At times, Sean said his dad was LDS, other times not. Kyle Reyes. Dad was very respectful of the Mormon church. Even though he was Catholic, he would attend church with us. Next up, the Marcos wanted to kill Buddy claim. The dictatorial regime of Ferdinand Marcos threatened to kill Buddy Reyes, a renowned artist and entertainer, because of his outspoken views about the government. Remember, Sean Reyes said they literally put a gun to his head. Magsaysay's widow helped Buddy escape. Coretta Scott King helped keep him from being deported. In 1967, was Buddy protesting against Marcos or working as an extra? He claims to have been an extra in the film Mission Batangas, shot in the Philippines in about 1967, with lots of Filipino extras. An extreme low-budget film that starred the producer-director's wife, Vera Miles, and Dennis Weaver. Miles, incidentally, was a Mormon and had co-starred 7 years earlier in the movie Psycho. Reyes claims to have played a pop singer in the film, but there is no singer in the script. He seemingly turned a job as an extra into a producer making blockbuster movies. The Marcos claim is bunk. There would have been ample evidence to document that Buddy's protest came to Marcos's attention and that a hit was put out on him. He would have qualified for political asylum. Magsaysay's widow would have had the clout to call the Philippine consulate in L.A. and ask them to help. 5 Pinocchios. The MLK Jr. Portrait Contest claim. The purported fact is that Buddy's portrait of Dr. Martin Luther King won the national award while competing with thousands of top professional artists in America. This portrait hangs at the Martin Luther King Museum in Atlanta, Georgia. A few more statements about the painting. Painting by Reyes's father won Coretta Scott King's sponsored National Art Contest in memory of Martin Luther King Jr. Norberto gained instant celebrity status when he won a nationwide contest with his portrait of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968. He won the inaugural Martin Luther King National Art Contest, and Mrs. King, a group of lawyers and senators, helped my dad establish himself with citizenship. Shortly after that, Dad married Mom. I found no newspaper account of a contest being held or won at city, state, and national levels as Sean Reyes claims. The Martin Luther King Center archivist, Cynthia Lewis, never heard of such a contest. She told me no such painting hangs there at the center now or ever hung there. She said only 5 portraits are currently on display. Hundreds are in storage. Let's give it 4.5 Pinocchios. Hold on a minute. There's more to the King portrait story. It's about what MLK Center archivist Lewis does recall. I emailed her a photo. She recalls at one time seeing a portrait painted on a cabinet door. She thinks it might be Reyes's. Her guess, it came into the collection between 1984 and 1990 and may be lost among hundreds of others in storage. Coretta Scott King has separate artwork holdings yet to be processed. It could be in there. Lewis told me she'll look for the painting and possibly display it. She's planning a King Gandhi special exhibit. Because of Buddy's depiction of Gandhi in the painting, she plans to look for it. If she finds it, include it in the exhibit. It would be ideal to utilize the painting, she said. That the artist had to use a door tells another story. She praised Buddy for coming into this country and quickly having a grasp of King's message. My inquiry might lead to the painting being found and actually put on public display. Buddy's Magic Johnson painting claim. In 2012, while Sean Reyes was a candidate for Attorney General, the Salt Lake Tribune reported, Reyes, who was running for office for the first time, is a half-Filipino Mormon from Hawaii and is a sports fan who grew up idolizing Magic Johnson. This is not Buddy's painting, but one of perhaps dozens made of Johnson. The whereabouts of the Buddy Reyes painting is a mystery. Eventually, Buddy's reputation earned him commissions to paint portraits, including Magic Johnson. The Magic Johnson painting fact-checked. Buddy very likely painted Magic Johnson's portrait. In 1992, shortly after Johnson announced he was HIV positive, his foundation conducted an AIDS fundraising auction. According to a source who saw the painting at the time it was donated, said, Buddy donated his painting to the charity for auctioning. A donor bid $10,000 for it. Buddy insisted Johnson come by his house to pick it up in person and for touch-ups. Magic refused, and Buddy withdrew his donation. The friend said he was upset at Buddy, calling his offer to donate the artwork disingenuous. Keep in mind, the claim was that Magic Johnson commissioned a painting. There's no proof that happened. That claim gets 5 Pinocchios. The Apollo 11 astronauts portrait claim. And by the way, I've never seen a photo of that artwork. Mr. Reyes's painting, entitled The Spirit of 11, depicting the historic moon landing by the Apollo 11 astronauts, was considered one of the most important paintings of that decade. Buddy Reyes. The Apollo 11 crew, a painting that was sent to the Smithsonian Institute. Sean Reyes. He's an artist that has a beautiful painting in the Smithsonian, Logan Herald Journal. Fact-checked, 5 years after the moon landing, Buddy had it, showing it at art shows. As documented in news stories like this one in a Hawaii paper, it said Reyes will exhibit his works, including the $30,000 Spirit of 11. There was a rumor Reyes wanted the Smithsonian to pay $30,000. They declined. He kept it. Rating that claim, 4 out of 5 Pinocchios. Almost certainly a lie. The mugging near the Milan train station claim. I don't believe either Buddy or Sean told this story publicly. It's one an associate knew about when it happened, about Buddy fighting off 4 muggers when he was returning from the Milan Film Festival. But he did tell it again to an associate years later, and that was posted online. This version was written by a spokesman, Delbert Davis, in 2019. He's a fierce warrior. He almost killed 6 people in Milan, Italy, when they tried to attack him and steal his briefcase filled with money from the sale of his film at the Milan Film Festival. They were all knocked down, lying on the street, and without a scratch he continued on to take a train back to Rome. They had no idea that he's a boxer and martial artist. He told me once, don't ever mess around with a Pinoy. That is, don't mess around with a Filipino. Fact-checking the Milan mugging story, they're both likely made up. The second version is the most far-fetched. The number of attackers goes from 4 to 6. Reyes did not sell the movie at the festival and never had a briefcase full of money. Most of both stories is probably false. I had done fact-checking for previous reports in 2017, 2020, and 2022. In 2017, I wrote an article based on an interview I did with Buddy at the state capitol. It was a fascinating interview. I found him to be very likable, intelligent, and based on my research, a tireless worker. As the interview progressed, it also became clear he was not only sociopathic, that he was also seriously delusional. As I reported, after a succession of failed ventures, Reyes formed 2 closely connected entities, the for-profit Golden Eagles Academy, LLC, in 2006, and the nonprofit Glowing Heart Society Foundation in 2008. In a promotional video, he pointed out that his program is not network marketing, or MLM, but a new concept of wellness, wealth, and wisdom.
On behalf of the Glowing Heart Society, I'd like to invite you to look into our incredible and exciting program. But before I share with you what it is, let me first tell you what it is not. That way we won't have any misunderstanding. Our program is not, and I repeat, is not network marketing or MLM. It's absolutely different. There has never been anything like it before. For instance, our system generates wealth through selflessness and compassionate service.
The not an MLM was just a sales pitch. His own LinkedIn page touts his MLM expertise. Buddy Reyes has over 35 years of leadership experience in network marketing. One of his online video messages deployed a slick fake television news set with Buddy as anchorman.
From the Good News Center of the Glowing Heart Society, there's late breaking news. It is a combination of many gifts. The gift of faith, of hope, and of love. It is also the gift of wisdom, great health, and prosperity.
As I reported in 2017, his MLM marketed a cure-all drink. Giasol was sold as a homeopathic preparation consisting of trace amounts of silver in water, retailing for $16 for an 8-ounce bottle. It really attacks all kinds of diseases, Reyes said. It's better than any antibiotics there are because this one kills both bacteria and viruses. Colloidal silver cures have long been associated with ultra-conservative Mormons and with Mormon-related multi-level marketing schemes. Colloidal silver products were legal in the United States, but making false curative claims about them is not. Buddy's daughter Noreen and son Sean are both MLM boosters. Noreen worked for New Skin and Nature Sunshine. Sean seen here at an MLM nutritional supplement facility. Among Sean Reyes's direct sales campaign donors are New Skin, doTERRA, Vivint, USANA, Herbalife, and the Utah-based Direct Selling Association. MLMs have enjoyed Utah as a so-called safe haven for direct sales companies, free of any anti-pyramid scheme prosecutions by the AG's office. In 2016, I produced a YouTube video titled Mormon Fraud. It said MLM was a colossal cancer on Utah and the Mormon Church. It's accepted by LDS authorities and protected by Utah's Mormon-dominated legislature, and it generates substantial tax revenue and tithing. Buddy's nonprofit Glowing Heart Society Foundation was not registered with either Utah's Corporations Division or the IRS, as required by law. Buddy did not file legally mandated financial reports. So donors, the public, and press got no hint how much money he raised and how it was spent. The for-profit Golden Eagles Academy, LLC, was once registered in Nevada and Utah, but since revoked. Buddy's illegal conduct occurred while his son Sean was Utah Attorney General. In fact, Sean spoke at least one of Buddy's fundraisers. Reyes also formed a mining company. He told me he was developing technology that produces water from air, generates energy from winds at only 3 kilometers an hour, and a machine that mines gold from the surface of the earth instead of from underground mine shafts and tunnels. We get tons of gold from the surface of the earth, he said. Buddy Reyes, like his son Sean, claimed child kidnapping is going on in Utah. When I interviewed Buddy in 2017, he told me Sean gave him a badge and appointed him an agent for the Utah Attorney General's office. He said Sean sent him on a mission to rescue 2 Utah girls who purportedly had been kidnapped and transported to a remote mountainous region in the Philippines for organ harvesting. He told me Mormon girls command more money for their cleaner kidneys because they don't smoke or drink. He said the 2 had been smuggled to the Philippines, to the remote area, but he said he created a strike force, set up a command center, and gathered intelligence. But he took his team up the mountain, being led by pygmies armed with poison arrows. They encountered a rapid-fire machine gun. The bullets were zinging past them. We were armed to the teeth with submachine guns, M1 rifles, but I only had a .45 caliber pistol because I was leading, Reyes said. But instead of returning fire, he said he led his team in prayer. I told them, I don't care what religion you are, I'm going to pray, and you pray with me. We are going up there with angels surrounding us. Nobody's going to be killed. Try not to kill anybody. Our goal is to save the teenage girls. He said no one was killed, and they rescued 63 body part slaves. But he also fought against evil forces in the Philippines. We got a very strong intel that a major attack on Christians will be done on Christmas Day, where they will be beheaded in front of movie cameras beamed worldwide to embarrass the USA and to recruit more terrorists. Buddy was a so-called birther who claimed he personally investigated the validity of Barack Obama's Hawaiian birth certificate in Honolulu. He determined it was fake because it did not match contemporary certificates at that hospital and that the birth certificate had been photoshopped. Reyes told me he was part of an international team of intelligence officers who, with God's help, are working to clean up the world and combat evil people. He said Trump is on the good side and Obama on the bad side. He said a lot of people don't like Trump because of the fact he groped some people, but he never killed anybody like the Clintons did. Meanwhile, Buddy was making ongoing Elvis impersonator appearances, raising money for his purported charity. This example, a benefit promotion by the LDS Church-owned Deseret News, passed off as a news story. The headline read, "Elvis of Asia, Sean Reyes' father, hopes to promote the love of the Savior through benefit concert." That he'd sing 26 Elvis songs, raise money and awareness for Glowing Heart Society. Ticket price, $30, will feed a family of 6 for a week. Reyes, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Guest speakers, his sons Sean and Kyle. The story included the usual false claims about the Pope Paul VI painting and touring with Bob Hope. There was no fact-checking by the Deseret News, which passed along falsehoods as truths. Here's a short sample of Buddy's Elvis imitations.
Well, you may go to college, you may go to school, you may love a pink Cadillac, but don't you think nobody in school? Oh, baby, come back, baby, go. Come back, baby, go. Well, listen, tell you, honey, I want you to know. Come on back and let's play the house so we can act like a deal.
A few months after my interview, Buddy entered the Elvis of Asia competition held in Manila. He lost to another Filipino. Since my 2017 interview, Buddy's family made a trip to the Philippines. His physical health was declining. He was suffering from gastric cancer. Since 2017, there have been more conspiracy theories. He wrote about his work in an underground laboratory to make a weapon to counter the enemy's microwave assault that caused typhoons and earthquakes. The ailing Reyes needed a spokesman, a task assumed by Delbert Davis, one of his fellow LDS ward members in California. Davis filed updates on Buddy's Facebook page. He wrote he is also surrounded by new frequency machines created by the RG scientists to counter the powerful and highly advanced technology of the enemies. Just in their unit alone, 6 commanders were immediately killed when hit by the most deadly weapon of the evil enemy. They are trying to get rid of top leaders who are effectively fighting them. Buddy is one of those marked men. Only 2 survived that attack. The other one, a retired Marine general, was hanging in with Buddy for a while, but finally succumbed last night. Davis's Facebook page shows he shares conservative Republican leanings with Buddy and his son Sean. One poster calls for Melania Trump to repeat as First Lady in 2024, and of course the usual anti-Biden sloganeering. As his health declined, Buddy turned to alternative medicine. He's now being treated by an Oriental doctor who is also a world-renowned neurologist and acupuncturist. He found out that a whole lot of Buddy's meridians are blocked and are clogged by the unique and unusual poisonous toxins, including heavy metals. The doctor pierced him with over 50 needles, from the top of his head, his face, all the way down through the entire body, up to his toes. Sean Reyes would concede that at least near the end, his father was demented.
And, in the later years, Dad with dementia and other things kind of got, like crazy Uncle Larry sort of a little bit. And
next up, Sean Reyes' 2022 Church Talk. It's the final segment in this report. On July 24th this year, Reyes spoke at an LDS single adult fireside event. Reyes is a former LDS bishop and stake high councilman. Here's a rundown of the topics Reyes covered in his speech. Buddy Reyes makes an after-death appearance. Buddy's pen kept on President Trump's Oval Office desk. President Trump gives Sean a special award just days after the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Newsflash, it's a miracle. The People's Republic of China quietly, secretly approves a Mormon temple for Shanghai. In his talk, Reyes said his father appeared at a church ceremony 2 years after he died. It happened when Sean's younger brother Kyle was being set apart as an LDS bishop. Their sister Noreen was also there. I just had a beautiful experience, Reyes said. My little brother got set apart as a bishop, and in the circle standing there and on the stand, and my sister and I had different experiences, but we both saw our departed dad who was there. Kyle Reyes declined comment. I spoke briefly with Noreen, who confirmed she was there. I read her brother's quote, and she said, I agree. But she would not say whether she agreed they both saw their departed father or instead agreed that she had a different experience. I'll begin by first quoting from a Deseret News article about the part of Reyes's famous RNC speech in 2020 where he mentions the pen. An emotional Reyes said his father lost his fight with cancer a few months ago. He said among the possessions at his bedside was a pen Trump had given Reyes to give to him. Now I'll play the clip from the RNC speech that he would refer to in his church talk almost 2 years later.
A few months ago, my father, my warrior hero, lost his fight with cancer. When he passed, he had by his bedside his scriptures, family photos, and a pen President Trump gave me to give him. Dad loved that pen. It represented freedom to him, the freedom that only exists when someone is willing to fight for it. To my father, President Trump is that ultimate warrior fighting for our freedom.
About Reyes's reference to scriptures on his dad's hospital bed nightstand? The original draft Reyes sent the White House for review did not say scriptures, but Book of Mormon and Bible. The White House wanted that cut out. Reporters at the convention were given drafts that still said Book of Mormon, which Reyes brought up when he addressed the LDS group on July 24th. Reyes explained the White House limited his talk to 500 words. They said, "Can we cut out? You say at one point your dad passed away with a picture of your family and a Book of Mormon and Bible. Can you say scriptures? It saves us 7 words. I said, sure. Reyes added what he called a side note. The media, they decided to make that a huge deal, as if the administration hated the church, so purposefully extricated the words Book of Mormon. None of that is true." Back to the July 24th speech. Recapping, Trump had given Sean a pen to give to his father, Buddy. Later, Reyes and Trump speaking at an event. Reyes, just off stage, tried to give the pen back to Trump at his father's request. Reyes said, "The President of the United States stopped. He was supposed to go on stage, just introduced to 50,000 people. Secret Service staring at me. What are you doing right now?" I just handed him my dad's pen. He took his time and looked at the pen and said, "Sean, I know this means a lot to you and your family." Trump took the pen, but then returned it, saying, "Instead of me keeping it, I'd like to give it back to you to keep as a family heirloom." I was touched, and I said, "Thank you, sir," and started walking away. But then Reyes thought, "My dad, that's not what I told you to do with the pen. I told you to give it to him." So I literally stopped, his Secret Service ready to draw their weapons. "My dad wanted you to have the pen." He stopped again and said, "Thank you very much." He said, "I'm going to put this pen on my desk. So he left, and he had given it to Dan Scavino. He was deputy chief of staff. I said, Dan, it's okay. You don't have to put it on the desk. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Dan said, no, he's serious. If this pen is not on his desk within 24 hours, I will lose my job. That's not the buddy pen, but it may have been one like it. Reyes concluded, and the final chapter, the epilogue, months after that, the president's last week, and he was leaving office. But as we were saying goodbye, I looked down at what was on the president's desk. That pen. Pretty moving. Next, Reyes's presidential award story. He told the congregation, here it is, 2020. I lost my father. I win re-election. Pretty tough. People say all sorts of stuff about me. The media in particular are brutal. I might be fat, ugly, wrong about a lot of stuff. I feel like I'm a person of principle, and the media started unleashing a barrage of op-eds, saying, worst attorney general in the history of the state of Utah, most corrupt, and none of that based on anything factual or true. I was feeling pretty low. I should be feeling pretty good. I was winning an election. I spoke at RNC. I was just in the doldrums. I just lost my dad. Is this really what I should be doing? I gave up a really profitable, very fulfilling business career. After the blood, sweat, and tears I put into this job for 7 years, this is my legacy. Most corrupt, public official. And then, interestingly, the White House called. It was their last week. I had just visited them. I saw the pen on the desk. I came back to Utah, and they called back and said, Sean, of all the people who have worked with us all the way back to 2016, you're one of the very few we can count on one hand, of the thousands that haven't asked us for anything. Everybody else has had an appointment. Everyone else has been given something that they've wanted. You've turned us down. You didn't take cabinet positions. You didn't take other stuff. What can we do for you? We'd like to give you an award. An award like this, the Medal of Freedom. In 2018, Trump said Utah Senator Orrin Hatch had called him the greatest president in the history of our country. Trump said he asked Hatch, does that include Lincoln and Washington? Hatch said, yes. So Hatch got the Medal of Freedom. The week before Reyes got a call from the White House saying, we want to give you an award, Trump had presented 2 loyalists, Devin Nunes and Jim Jordan, medals of freedom. Reyes probably wondered, where's my medal? If not a medal, what kind of award? Reyes went on with his church speech, quoting the White House. We don't have time to actually go through Senate confirmation like any of the normal awards, so we kind of made something up, and we're going to send it to you. And I thought, cool, a blue ribbon from the White House. They'd already given me a key to the White House, which is really fun. It doesn't work, by the way. I tried it. The congregation laughed. They had no idea. I just won re-election for my 3rd term. Things looked great from the outside for Sean Reyes, the Attorney General of Utah. And yet they did this for me, amidst this adversity, and I can't express how important it was for me. Reyes's reward was a letter of commendation. He read parts of it. This letter represents an award and commendation from the President of the United States for your tireless and bipartisan effort on a number of fronts to protect and empower America and its people. The letter talked about human trafficking. The work we have done together empowering survivors is a proud accomplishment of my administration. I was done. I was in tears. The letter cited many other Reyes accomplishments. It ended using one of Reyes's favorite words. The First Lady and I, along with all of my family, understand very much you are a warrior. Of course, we all know what happened 8 days prior to the January 14 letter. Trump was impeached the same day he wrote the Reyes letter, if he wrote it at all. There was nothing in Reyes's church talk about the biggest security breach in American history, or about the fact the man who gave him the award helped incite the riot. Reyes had breaking news in his July 24th speech to the single adults. It was about what he knew about a temple the Mormon Church had announced to be built in Shanghai, in the People's Republic of China. He said, "This is a very special story that I have never shared publicly. I heard it from a friend. I promise you this one you've likely not heard. You won't hear it in a general conference talk because of the personal, sacred nature of this. And I think it's one that will open your eyes a little bit." Reyes began, "A very prominent businessman in the church, some of you might know him, was there in China on assignment doing different things, half for business. He knows President Xi. He knows a lot of the leaders and administrators of China. He had a particularly momentous meeting with the Minister of Education in China, a woman. She asked, 'Maybe you can help me. My grandmother has been appearing to me for months in dreams, and my grandmother is desperate, and she's telling me, her granddaughter, that she and her grandfather are trapped along with many of our family, and they can't get out of this place. That she will meet an American who has the key to unlock this prison that they're in, to free them.'" Reyes continued the story, saying the Minister of Education had no idea what her grandmother was talking about. She said to Reyes's friend, "You're the only American on my schedule who's here. Do you have a key?" He said, "I don't have that key, but I know the prison you're talking about, and the American who has that key is a very special friend of mine, and he's scheduled to come here, and I'd like to introduce him to you, the prophet on earth today." Because of that communication, not solely, there were many other things that contributed. Meetings ensued, hearts were softened, an announcement came in 2020, which many of you are aware of, the temple in China, though not an elaborate temple. Can you think about the miracle that is? A Salt Lake Tribune article explained the controversy. It said, "On April 5th, during the final session of the Faith's General Conference, Church President Russell M. Nelson stunned believers with the news that among its new temples would be one in China. Nelson, who has long-standing ties to Shanghai, was careful in how he described the holy space to be established there. He said, 'In Shanghai, a modest, multi-purpose meeting place will provide a way for Chinese members to continue to participate in ordinances of the temple for them and their ancestors.'" Within days of Nelson's remarks, though, the Shanghai Ethnic and Religious Affairs Bureau said on its website it knew nothing about a Mormon temple being built. In response to a question posed on China's Twitter, the Bureau wrote, "The news that the American Mormon Church announced that it is building a temple came only from the American side. Since then, not a peep from the church, no clarification. Church Media Affairs did not respond to my email that cited the Reyes speech. A returned missionary who served in China wrote, 'I served a Chinese-speaking mission and deeply loved the people in China. Some of my dearest friends live in Shanghai.' And then nothing. Nothing. China comes out and says, 'We never approved any plans for this temple,' and then radio silence from the church. No further discussions, no updates, no plans, just the promise of an incredible gift and then no performance. Big words, no action." What could be a possible fate of a Shanghai LDS temple? Take, for example, this towering church building in Zhejiang, China. One reporter wrote that it resembled a Mormon tabernacle topped with a giant red cross. It cost more than $3 million, but was then razed by the Chinese government in 2014, at the beginning of a campaign to curtail the spread of Christianity in the People's Republic. If Reyes's story is accurate, it means some kind of LDS temple, perhaps just an endowment house, was secretly approved by the PRC, and, it follows, temple ordinances are now being performed there. And finally, this postscript. Part of Reyes's popularity in Utah stems from his support of gun rights. 6 years ago, the Deseret News reported that Reyes kept a machine gun in his office at the Capitol. But there was no photo. Recently, not one but two assault rifles popped up in an office photograph. One appears to be Russian-made, both higher powered than more common AR-15s. One has a high-capacity magazine underscoring Reyes's opposition to proposed legislation banning higher-capacity magazines. That's the end. Thanks for watching.